Welcome to another episode of Paris and Bazcast, where we bring on different guest speakers to talk about the three things that the three services we provide, so being property management, sales, and finance. Today, we're joined by Luke Moroney from Search. Here we go again.
Property.
Search Party Property.
Bit
of a tongue twister. To talk to us about investment opportunities less than 300k, mainly in the market of Brisbane. Apologies, I said Australia beforehand. So that's something that we're going to be talking about, and a number of other exciting different topics. So without further ado, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, and obviously connecting through Facebook and social media, which is a big part of advertising and creating that awareness for our businesses. So
that's right. Yeah.
So great to have that tool, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're not on social media, you're not in the game.
That's it.
So just a bit of a background about yourself.
Sure. Well, I started investing back in 2002, and it's always good to obviously have that great first investment, but it didn't work out like that for me. And I bought a property that was at the peak of the market back in 2002, kind of similar to that 2017 market where things were going towards that peak and then starting to decline at that stage. So I bought back in that market 15 years prior to that, and things started to decline after that. I also tried to manage those tenants on my own, and I guess you will attest to this. It's not the smartest move, and especially for someone who's so inexperienced. So I made all the mistakes first up, and I realized that I needed to change things up and change my ways before I was able to grow my portfolio to where it is today.
Wow. So what was the key learning that we could take out from that property?
It's probably a message that I say each and every day now. It's I use an acronym, so TAP, Team, Action, and Patience.
Yeah.
T for team, A for action, P for patience.
Wow.
So, basically to turn on the tap in your life, turn on the tap in areas of property or business or whatever it might be. So who are the team of experts that you're using? What action are you taking? And I think that's where people miss out on a lot. They can do all the research, get all the team members in place, and then they feel a bit scared about it. And it's a massive financial decision that you have to make. So, that action step is a big one. Look, I took action with that first property, which is great. Yeah. Learned a lot on the way, but I didn't have the team, and that's why. But I did have the patience, so I let that, go through. Actually, there was 10 years without any growth on that property. If you had its ups and downs through, but over 10 years, it was still at about the same price. And then it took off after that.
So you bought your first property in 2002. So you didn't buy another property for 10 years after that?
It was about 9 years before I bought the next one. Okay. So I was actually overseas during that time for about 4 years. And then I just thought you buy one property. This is my education when I started up. Buy one property, hold it forever, it'll grow, and you'll get some wealth.
Yeah.
That's as much education that I had. But as times went on and I met more people in property investing, I could see that there was a benefit to doing things a little bit differently. And I kept hearing about, 90% of millionaires create their wealth through property.
That's it. Landlords grow rich in their sleep, as they say. So 15 years on and 30 properties later.
30 properties it is, yeah.
Learned a lot of lessons throughout.
There is a lot of lessons to learn, and I think that's what it's all about. And I think what people have got to realize that, they're looking for that perfect investment. What is going to be the perfect thing that's really going to create the wealth for me? But it's more about sometimes having the right team still, but you are going to make some mistakes along the way.
Right.
So the lessons are sometimes more important than the wealth creation.
Wow.
Absolutely.
I think the audience will probably want to know, after you bought your first property 2002, next property after 9 years, what was the next step you did to build?
Well, I went back into the Sydney market. I was still in, I was obviously living in Sydney, and we tend to, buy close to where we live because we know those areas. But I felt like the second time I went back into Western Sydney that I purchased that property knowing that there was signs of growth in that market. A lot of things were happening with the infrastructure around that Blacktown area, and I felt that things were going to, all the data and information that was coming in was pointing towards Western Sydney really taking off, especially. But then obviously on the back of that, it started to ripple back towards the city areas rather than sort of ripple out. This rippled back in. Right. And Blacktown and that Mount Druitt and those sort of surrounding areas were really the first ones to take off.
So that's where you pumped your investment initially.
That's right.
And then after that, you went into state, I could say?
Yeah, at that time, after that time, went to the Central Coast. So I started to broaden my scope around the extent of where I looked. I was quite familiar with the Central Coast as well, so I started to look into that and develop relationships with agents at that time. And I bought quite a few deals up there on the Central Coast. And then after that time, it was about starting to get my team of experts around me. Yeah, so I worked with another buyer's agent at that time, and then started to learn and grow through acquiring those Brisbane properties, especially. Bought some properties in Melbourne as well on the back of using a buyer's agent.
So when you were acquiring these properties, were you working as well, full-time job? Or
Yes, I was working full-time, and there was a time I was actually previously a strata manager, so working in the real estate industry, and really grew that wealth around the idea of learning what happens in strata companies and how that works in terms of the real estate experience. And then as I had enough savings and property behind me, my wife still worked at that time, so I ended up quitting my job and then took on investing full-time. And then continued to grow the portfolio. Lending was a lot easier back in 2011, 12, 13, as opposed to right now. And I took advantage of that situation. So I acquired quite a few properties during that time between 2011, 2015, where lending was quite easy and not the rigorous steps you have to go through right now. So it's incredible.
Yeah, so that sort of took you towards Brisbane, and which is the market that we're going to talk about today, the opportunities of less than 300,000. So I think one of the key takeouts from what we've seen in the past and what the landlords or what our clients are looking for is how to not put your eggs in one basket. So that's why having that diversification strategy of less valued property but more of them to be able to generate that income. So talk us about those opportunities that are in that market.
Well, and towards when I bought my first investment property in Brisbane, the only time I'd actually been there was Expo 88. So, a long time ago, maybe some of the viewers might not even realise about that, but I didn't know the Brisbane market at all. So going into a buyer's agent first time and realising, what the market what was going on with it, I just thought I'd go in with an entry level, affordable entry property. And I bought something for $178,000.
Wow.
Now, I still have that property, and it achieves $270 a week in rent.
Wow.
So the yield and cash flow is quite high on that property, which is fantastic, and it enabled me to get the confidence in that property to go forward and make subsequent purchases there. The deals that we're doing now, kind of similar, somewhere from all the way from $160,000 all the way, up to, plus $500,000. I guess what we're talking about today is some of the deals that you can get under the $300,000 mark, and where the affordability really kicks in, and why we're buying in the Brisbane market, because it is quite affordable. There's other things like jobs and infrastructure being built. They're actually spending more money in Queensland in infrastructure than they are going to in Victoria moving forward. So that's a great positive step for the Queensland market.
Yeah, and what's fueling that? Is there a particular?
There's a lot that's going on at the Brisbane airport, a lot going on at the port of Brisbane, and also they're building that inland rail line for products to come from Asia into Brisbane port and then down to Sydney and Melbourne. So that's a big sort of focus on some of that infrastructure that's going on. There's train lines being built, tunnels and so forth with those train lines. And there's a lot going on with motorways and things like that as well in terms of infrastructure.
So what key suburbs are you targeting? Is it all over Brisbane, or is it a pocket?
We're looking at the council areas of Moreton Bay, Logan and Ipswich, and typically between that 15, 35, maybe 45 ring around from the Brisbane CBD. That's where we're finding opportunities. And I guess you can look at a council area or a suburb and look at, okay, well, that suburb's going to be better than the next one, but it's sometimes down to that individual deal. So, and it might sometimes be, $80,000, $50,000 to $80,000 difference sometimes because you've got the right deal.
Okay.
It goes along, reasons why we're a buyer's agent. Relationship with the agents is supreme reason for us to get better deals than the average person. And then obviously, most of our clients are probably time poor as well, so they don't have the opportunity to go and see some of these properties, and they might be interstate as well.
True.
But we're going to get better deals than the average person,
'Cause you're doing
probably
full-time.
90% of the time, right? So because we are doing it full time, we are on the ground each and every day. Now, I live in Sydney, but my business partner, Mark, who is in Brisbane, is on the ground, and he's been working there in Brisbane in that marketplace for about 8 years and bought over 1,100 properties for buyers.
Wow.
So,
That's a serious number. There you
that's
go.
the experience that you can't just develop overnight, and you can't just get in there in the market and do a deal like that, like he's able to do each and every week.
Wow.
So it's significant.
Experience.
Absolutely, yeah. So for a typical property, let's say it's 300,000
Yes.
in the city of Logan, what sort of rental return are you looking at?
We're probably looking at somewhere anywhere around about the 350, I would say, on average.
Yep.
Some will be a little bit less, some will be a little bit more.
Yeah.
So you might find yourself on a house with a house that has the capability to have a 700 or 800 square metre block of land, where you can potentially put a granny flat. You can potentially subdivide that property. So that's kind of, we bought a property for a client that was 250. They put 20 or 25 grand of renovations in and have the opportunity to put a granny flat in now, and that was in Logan.
Wow.
So
what's the land size on that?
that was about 800, that one.
Wow.
For 250. Wow.
That's
That's
when you
crazy,
compare
So
that.
when you're looking at that, that's 30
opportunities,
k's from the Brisbane CBD, 30 k's from the Sydney CBD. If you go out west,
Showed by ensuite,
it's 900, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like it's probably 900, close to a mil. That's a significant amount. And I guess when people are looking at it, it's just like affordability. If it gets unaffordable in Sydney, where are they going to move? Are they going to move to Hobart? Are they going to move to Adelaide, Western Australia, Darwin? Where are they going to go? Or are they going to go to Brisbane? I'd love to hear from you guys. Where would you move if you had to move around Australia?
Depending on what what the lifestyle features are. Obviously, we're in this particular area for the last 10 years, and that's for a number of reasons. And actually, I was talking to Gadev about it the other day, is that this particular pocket of the Hills District, from one end of Norwest Boulevard to the other, you've pretty much got everything. So you're sort of becoming very insular within this area, and it's sort of becoming a little bit out of your comfort zone to move further out. So quite comfortable with where we are, but it's always good to see what else is out there, and what the lifestyle decisions can be made.
So, and also we were discussing the Brisbane market's pretty been level. You said the last couple of years.
There's been some steady growth. I think in some of the some of the types of properties where there's been an oversupply of investors going into that market, you probably haven't seen the growth in those properties, but you've got the cash flow. So that's an example of that first property I bought. But some of those ones that had 1,000 square metre blocks, or those larger style blocks, have had the growth. If you bought them, 4 or 5 years ago, they have had some growth happen through that. And I guess in both of those markets, or those types of properties, you're probably going to see growth in the future. Again, affordability and all those things around infrastructure and so forth.
Where could we say Brisbane is in the cycle?
When they talk about I don't know if you refer to the Heron Todd and White property clock, they've probably got it somewhere between 8 or 9 o'clock. So on a rising market.
So it's pretty incentivable to buy now.
I guess when we look at it, and I talk to investors about the idea about Brisbane, I'm speaking to a lot of people that are in Sydney, and it's like, oh no, I won't go interstate, I won't buy it, I don't know it, I can't go and see it. Look, I don't see any of my properties, whether they're in Sydney or Brisbane or in Victoria, wherever they might be. It's the strength of the property manager and that team, like I said, around you. So it's not that important to actually go and see. So you've really got to weigh up your decisions. I guess we take it from a standpoint of it's a low risk. Because it's affordable entry points. You're not buying a property at 600,000 or 800,000 or $1 million. You're buying something at 200, 250, maybe 300, and it's a good entry level point for people to get involved. So it's a low risk. and then that potential for growth.
Yeah.
And when you're thinking about low risk, it provides you that cash flow.
Cash flow as well.
So that stronger cash flow on yields that are 5, 6, 7, 8%, as opposed to Sydney where you're probably getting maybe a 2 or 3, unless
So it
it's
weighs
a
out.
unique property.
Definitely value for money.
That's right.
And talk us through about rent vesting. It's one of your personal topics, I guess, so to speak.
Absolutely.
So how does that work, and what are your insights on that?
I think that a lot of people don't have a look at that particular idea because people are often tied up emotionally with property.
Which is, I think, what we are.
Yeah, of course, and it works for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Obviously, having a family, and if you have a family, you don't want to move, and if your kids are going to school, you don't want to have to that worry about moving. But I think if you're in a situation where you don't mind the flexibility, or if you had to move, you can move, then it makes it an ideal situation, because I actually find myself, and I live in Drummoyne, which is close to the city of Sydney, and we're actually paying probably, it's about a difference, I did some calculations on it, but $200 a week if it was an interest-only loan, difference higher than what we pay in rent.
Wow, okay.
So that's $200 a week that we're basically saving. That's just on the interest payments. Now, people go, well, rent is dead money. Well, it's not dead money if there's no capital growth. Because if there is capital growth, obviously, then the rent is, I miss out on that capital growth. But at the moment, we've had a declining market. So we sold our property 2 years ago. And our property is probably worth about 200 or 300,000 less today than it was 2 years ago.
So you're ahead.
So I'm ahead. I've obviously picked it really well in terms of that. So I was fortunate for that to happen. And now the rental is making it $200 a week less on the interest. Now, I live in a strata building, so we're not paying strata. And other things that
anything goes wrong, call the landlord. Fix it. You don't have to.
That's
worry
right.
about
So repairs
that.
and maintenance and strata, plus the interest. So that's 3 things on the property. So no repairs and maintenance, no strata, and the interest only loan is $200 a week more if I actually bought the property as opposed to rent.
And having a portfolio of passive income definitely helps in that regard. So
that's
that's
a
good strategy.
Make money while you sleep.
Perfect.
And what other key factors can we look at when a customer is buying an investment property?
In terms of their, I think with everyone, you've got to first look at your mindset. So where are you at right now with what's going on? And you obviously want to look at the strategy behind what you're doing. So do you have the financial capability? Do you have the, with jobs, with deposit, with the fact of, are you going to, is there a potential for your job to be lost in 6 months or 12 months? Is there a chance that you might be made redundant? So you've got to weigh up all these things. And, it's really good to speak to clients about having a strategy behind what they're doing. So really assessing that first. Then the whole mindset about them, what people don't realize is like, yes, I want to get to my financial goal of leaving my job in 5 or 10 years' time. But they're just like, well, I'll buy one property and then I'll see what happens. And then maybe in 2 years or 3 years, I'll buy another one. Well, that's not going to get you to your goal of achieving, financial freedom or a passive income, like you said. You've just really got to, that's where people, don't take the action. They just hold themselves back from it. So I think clear plan, have that strategy. We show them about what's going on with some of the deals that we're doing, and we're quite transparent. We send weekly emails out to everyone, so if anyone wants to sign up for those, then they can have a look at those. And it gives them the opportunity to see what we're doing. We actually do a video through the house. So if you are interstate, you don't need to go to the property. We give you a good example about what's going on. And some of those affordable markets give, again, low risk strategy, potential for growth.
Absolutely. So the importance of having a good team is definitely critical for the properties that you can't
number
inspect.
One. Experts
That's
it's like you guys, right?
Exactly.
Why do the sellers come to you guys? Because you've got a really good team of people that you're going to do better than they try and do it themselves.
Exactly.
So look, even me I've got a real estate license. I could have sold my property, but I'm not going to do that because my real estate agent who sold my property, he's got all the connections. And this is what people don't realize. So you know, I see a huge value in the real estate agents, and people would be silly not to use one.
Yeah,
True,
absolutely. There
definitely.
you go. That's a
100%.
great note.
That's what
too.
happened to Purple Bricks. That's what they finished.
That's
Well,
a
it's
completely
just the
different
model, yeah. Just the model didn't
Oh,
work.
there you go. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you, everyone, for watching and for your attention there. And any other last final words?
Just
before
turn
you
on
go?
the tap. Team action
That's it.
patience, everyone.
That's it. That's the main
Thank you.
thing.
Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you. So we've got an exciting list of the next 4 events as well, which I'll be publishing later on tomorrow. So do come back. So this is a regular segment that we host every Thursday at 3 p.m. live on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you so much for watching again, and we'll see you guys next time.